Well, let's turn to the most damaging protest in the country. The blockade of the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor continues for a fourth day. It's the busiest border crossing in Canada. More than $300 million a day worth of trade goes back and forth across that bridge each day. It is a vital supply line for manufacturing and food between Canada and the United States. And protesters who want an end to vaccine mandates have shut it down along with a second international bridge in Sarnia. Auto plants on both sides of the border are now being idled and workers are being sent home. And if this lasts much longer, there could be long-lasting effects on the auto industry in this country. Flavio Volpe is the president of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association. He's with me now. Mr. Volpe, good to see you. Thanks for taking time to speak with me today. What can you tell us about the impact these protests at Windsor and to a slightly lesser extent at Sarnia are now having on the auto industry?
Well, there's about 100,000 people that show up to work to make parts every day in Ontario. There's at least that many in Michigan. And there's about 40,000 people that make cars in Ontario and probably twice that in Michigan. Today, all of those people are standing idle because 30 pickup trucks and a Hyundai Tucson are sitting on the access point on the Canadian side. It is not a trucker protest. I think we've watched this over the last few days turn into kind of an anti-government protest, but just sitting in the middle of the street. And what it's doing is costing about $600 million so far in goods that either didn't get made or didn't get shipped, and every day that passes is another $300 million.
I'm not sure everyone knows just how fragile the supply lines already are because of the pandemic, and then add the impact of the protest to that. Explain the effect of just a day or two delay in being able to move auto parts back and forth across the border.
This is a very lean industry. We operate in a just-in-time principle, meaning that if you're making a pickup truck in Jefferson County, Michigan, and you're getting seats from a factory in London, Ontario, they need 1,000 seats today to make 500 cars. And if they don't get them, they won't make those cars. And if they don't make those cars, every other supplier, whether that's Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Ontario, Quebec, also has to stand down on that production line. Well, multiply that by about 20 production lines on either side of the border, and probably 3,000 parts factories and a few hundred tool suppliers. And if you stick your finger into the bridge like this group has and said, you can't pass by here, there isn't another place to do it. You can't use the tunnel. And we went to Sarnia. Yeah. But, you can't send that many through Sarnia, so everybody's standing down.
We are now already seeing some U.S. politicians pointing to the bridge closures to fuel the Buy American debate again and calling for repatriating all auto production to the U.S. How concerned are you about where this could go?
I'm very concerned. I just came back from Washington last week, working on a compromise position on the Buy American piece and that EV tax credit that is that would hurt Canadian vehicle production. And now we're giving everybody an opportunity to show them that, look, maybe the best way to secure your supply is to make sure that it's in Michigan rather than Ontario. The people that are on this bridge, you're looking at the shot here of trucks. Those aren't protesters. They're being blocked by the people at the front. I've said there's a few dozen people there that should just be embarrassed. You've ground your city to a halt. People and you're saying to them, look, we're fighting for your freedom. Look, they have freedom to drive those trucks and to make the parts that go over there. And I'll tell you that the lasting impression here will be is people like me and people in government are going to have to continue to talk to Washington and to Paris and to Tokyo and all the other auto capitals of the world that make the decisions, because we don't have a car maker that is Canadian, and say, no, this couldn't happen again. But frankly, feels like a Simpsons episode. Just looking at your shot here, these people shut down the country.
What's your assessment of how our political leaders have handled all of this?
I think initially I said, I lived through 1995 in Ipperwash. You can't have politicians directing law enforcement. But frankly, I think law enforcement is being a little bit too careful here. And they're not paid to understand the wider implications. I think bipartisan, tripartisan, tri-level leadership resolve, standing out there and saying we want to do this, we need to get this cleared, is required. And some political leadership on both sides, the opposition parties at both levels, some of them have encouraged these protesters to be lawless. Somebody running to be the Prime Minister of Canada, I guess we've got a new system here, has said these people are fighting for your freedom. I think these people should be embarrassed that we're even having this conversation and this interview, Peter. I will have to explain this away for the rest of my career. And everybody else who tries to get foreign direct investment into Canada will have to explain why somebody should put a $2 billion asset on this side of the border, send $10 billion worth of cars to that side of the border, when, just a bunch of guys with hockey sticks and barbecues can shut it all down.
All right. Flavio Volpe, thank you for your perspective tonight. Good to talk to you. Take care.
My pleasure.